About 2 times a year, we try to get Greg Webb and Dustin in here to share with us and preach for us. And Greg's going to come and share the message today. Greg Sexton, he and Janice have been on vacation this past week. They'll be coming back this afternoon. But we're looking forward to what Greg has to come and share. We're going to take a break today from the series we've been in because Greg has something that he'd like to share with you and a challenge that he'd like to give that he received at a conference he went to about a year ago. So let's welcome Greg this morning.
Today, I was sitting in my 7th grade English class at Janesville Middle School when I believe it was the assistant principal came in and she handed our teacher a note card that said the words Code Red on it. The teacher immediately stepped up out of the classroom, walked out, and left all of us wondering what in the world was going on. He came back in for a second and excused himself again and said he had to make a phone call. He stepped outside again for a second. He comes back in with tears in his eyes. He tells us the Twin Towers have been hit, the Pentagon's been hit, America's under attack. He says, I have a daughter in D.C. today that's staying within eyesight of the Pentagon, and I can't get a hold of her. Silence just kind of fell over the room, and nothing really of importance happened the rest of the day at school. We just sat huddled around the TV for the rest of the day. I'm sure we could go around the room this morning, and we could all say exactly where we were, what we were doing when we heard the news 15 years ago that we got today. It doesn't seem like it's been 15 years, has it? Did you know that the first time that sink in for a second? Where do you think all that time went? It flies by. We all know that time flies. There's been books written, there's been blogs typed, podcasts spoken, all around the idea of better managing our time. Time is one of our greatest resources. Over time, some of the greatest things can be accomplished. Over time, at Macedonia, we would like to create a culture where faith at home is normal. We want to create a culture where every parent, every grandparent, every child, every week is doing something to become more Christ-like and building their foundation of faith. We long for Macedonia to be a place where everyone takes Deuteronomy 6 to heart. In this passage, Moses is giving instructions to the Israelites that God has given him so that they, their children, and their children's children may fear the Lord, know him, and follow his ways as long as they live. In verses 4 through 7, he says this, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. These I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. Now, over time, we've brought the founder of Faith at Home idea to this church. He spoke here about a year and a half ago to kind of launch the idea here. Over time, we've put take-home sheets outside the kids' church room, outside the preschool classrooms. We've had the Faith at Home Center built in the Breezeway to give you just a variety of resources to use in your homes. Just this past week, you should have received a letter about how we want to make time and we want to intentionally carve out time to make time for these things. Now, this morning is not going to be a traditional sermon. I'm going to continue to lay the foundation for these things, kind of lay the groundwork, if you will, and just pass along some of the things that we have learned about this subject. Let me say again that, this is for everyone. Now, speaking of time this morning, I have this jar of marbles. The first person that can guess how many marbles in that jar wins a prize this morning. Any guesses? No, I'm just kidding. There are 936 marbles in that jar. They represent, on average, how much time you have, how many weeks you have from the time a child is born until the time a child graduates high school. It sounds like a big number, but we all know the number's not big at all. If you're a parent of someone over 18 this morning, you've already lost all your marbles. If you're a grandparent this morning and you have a grandchild that's over 18, you've lost your marbles twice. If you have a grandchild that's under 18, you're in the process of losing your marbles a second time. If you're a parent this morning and you have a 3-year-old, you have 780 left. If you have a 7-year-old, you have 572. If you have a 12-year-old, you have 312. If you have a 16-year-old, you have 104 marbles left. It goes by fast. Now, I'm not trying to make any moms cry this morning. I'm not trying to turn moms and grandparents into helicopter parents and grandparents. What I am trying to illustrate this morning, though, is that we need to be reminded about how valuable our time really is. And when you see how much time you have left, then you tend to do more with the time that you have now. Let me say that again. When you see how much time you have left, you tend to do more with the time that you have now. And again, before I get started this morning, I'm not just talking to the parents. I'm not just talking to the grandparents. I'm talking to everyone in the room. If you've ever had a mother give birth to you, if you've ever had a parent or guardian feed you, if you've ever had a coach, if you've ever had an adult keep you from running in the street, if you've ever had somebody speak into your life and helped you get where you are today, I am speaking to you. We all have a responsibility to take a little of our time to invest in a kid that will be part of the next generation. All of us in here that are old enough to make a difference, we are called to be present in the lives of the next generation. So this morning I want to talk about 6 things that every kid needs. And when you combine them over time, what they can really accomplish, some amazing things they can accomplish. Our first word this morning is actually time. And while it may seem scary to parents and grandparents to hear that they only have a certain number of weeks left with their child, there is an advantage of putting a visual number to the time you have left. Psalms 90 and verse 12 says this: "Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom." Now, how exactly does this work? I'm not really sure, but I do know this. I do know that it makes sense that if we visualize our time, that we tend to pace ourselves. We tend to narrow our focus. We guard ourselves against distractions, and we become more intentional about what we do. If we count the time left that we have with our children, then we stand a better chance of making it count. Think about it this way. When you add a countdown clock to any game, any competition, any exercise, it affects behavior. Just yesterday, I'm yelling at the TV, "Snap the ball!" When you're in the upward gym, what happens when it gets under 10 seconds? All the kids play harder, they play faster. What happens to the coaches, to the stand, and the parents in the stands? Everybody's yelling, "Shoot the ball." The point is that each week will matter in the context of how many you have left. That's why I want to encourage you to take time each week in the home and at church to invest in kids. Now, I know it seems like some weeks that one week seems insignificant. That you get in the classroom, you're volunteering for something here at church, and there's distraction after distraction. The kids have ants in their pants. They had too many donuts at donut time. You know, nothing of importance really gets accomplished, so you think. The same thing happens at home. You're trying to teach them life lessons, and you think it just goes in one ear and out the other. I want to encourage you not to give up, because this week is connected to this week, and it's connected to this week, and so on. That's why spending time with kids each week matters. We just have to keep trusting that over time, time will do what God designed it to do. You ever thought about if time was invented as a clever way to accomplish something and certain things in life that can only happen over time? You ever thought about why when Adam and Eve sinned in the garden that God didn't send Jesus right then? I mean, he could have solved a lot of problems. We wouldn't have a lot of things that we have today. But instead, he waited. God used time. He gave Abraham a son. He let Joseph sit in jail. He made us read all those books in Leviticus. All right? He let David slay Goliath. He sent his son. It's as if God decided, I can help you understand something over time that you would never be able to understand in just a moment. It's the same with our kids. It takes time over time to make a history worth repeating. Time over time creates history. If you want to know what kids need, love is a good place to start. You know, love is God's idea. He created it. He created us. We are created to pursue intimacy. We are created to connect with others. Love matters. So many times we get busy that we forget what matters, or should I say, who really matters. It's kind of like the Pharisees. You know, they spent a lot of time learning and doing what they thought mattered to God. No one worked harder at keeping the rules. No one showed up at the temple more consistently. No one prayed more. No one studied Scripture more diligently. Not that those things aren't important. They just missed the most important thing. Maybe that's why Jesus told him, he said, guys, there's something greater than these things. He said, the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your mind, your soul, and your strength. And the second is to love your neighbor as yourself. Loving God matters. Loving ourselves matters. Loving others matters. All the above are true at the same time. The way you love kids especially matters. You know, we as adults, we understand things that truly give us our worth as humans. We know that life is precious and we have the gift of life. And it's made possible because God made us in His image and freely gave us that life. We also know that we're loved by Him because He sent His Son to die for us. And we can understand that. But kids desperately need adults that will love them in a way that convince them that they are worth something. Kids that don't feel loved when they're young may never learn to love themselves or love someone else in a healthy way. Thus, the way you love kids in your home and the way you love the kids in this building dramatically affects their futures. The way we love kids in their youth affects how they live as adults. You know, love is like investing in money. It gains shares. The sooner you start, the more you're going to have. The later you wait, the less you earn. That's why love over time creates worth. Our next word this morning is words. Did you know that on average, we all say 10,000 words a day? Now, I'm going to get that quota today because I'm up here speaking twice, but if you really know me, you know that I do not speak 10,000 words a day. All right. That means that somebody out there never stops talking. You know, we all have the tendency to underestimate the power of the words that we use around kids. You know kids are smart and they pick up words fast. Words are important in life, though. Without the right words, you can't understand concepts. In order to write out a thought, describe a picture, work a problem, you need words. If words allow us to think, see, and interpret, then they must be important to God. After all of this came into being with God's word. He said, let there be light. God's words have power, but He passes on that power to us. He gives us the ability to give things meaning, to define attributes, to shape perceptions of the world that He created. We have the power of communication, so not only do our words affect what we see, but our words can influence what others see. As someone who has responsibility to speak into the lives of the next generation, you have the choice to use words in a way that can love or scorn, encourage or tear down, illuminate or shut down. Words are a small thing, but they have tremendous influence. As parents, guardians, and adult leaders in the church, we have the unique opportunity to let our words over time help kids reason, win, and believe. Words over time can help kids reason. You need words to think. The more words you have, the more ideas you can create, and the more thoughts that you can think. If you want kids to be innovators, problem solvers, and doers, we need to give them words to be able to reason. The U.S. military's qualification test and the SAT score weight verbal abilities over math 2-1. They're going on the belief that the greater your variety of words, the greater your thinking. Words over time help kids win. If you want a kid to know they matter, then it matters what words you use around them and what words you use about them. You can set them up to feel significant, valued, and unique. Likewise, your words can unintentionally make them feel like a failure, box them in, or limit them. Your words have a huge impact. Now, you're most likely never going to hear a child say, "Mom, I've never thought about it that way." "Dad, your words made me feel so loved." Small group leader, when you said that about such and such, it really changed how I thought about this. Even when you don't realize it, your words have power to influence kids. Words over time help kids believe. You know, most of our theology is expressed in words. Have you ever seen redemption? Have you ever seen justification? Kids and teens in your home need to hear these theological words to understand the nature and the aspects of God. Our analogies, our adjectives, our questions will shape what they think about when they think about God. God gave us these words so that we could share them over time to communicate love, build each other up, and learn more about Him. As we pour into our next generation, words over time create direction. Stories is our next word. Everyone loves a good story. Anyone ever thought about what grandparents, fiction, and the Bible have in common? You probably haven't. But they represent 3 different types of stories that kids need in their lives. Kids need stories from grandparents and older adults. You know, as I look back, think about all the tales that my pawpaw used to tell me, and I say tales because I still can't remember. I still don't know if half of them were true and what was not true. All right, but I remember all the times, you know, going hunting with him and my dad, sitting in the middle of a dirt path in Gates County. The dogs are coming. My dad's giving us the symbol, be quiet, and my pawpaw was just talking a mile a minute, you know, telling me all these different tales and everything of when he was younger. I laugh at all the different tales that he used to tell about how him and my grandma met. I think about my other grandparents and just the life stories that my grandma and pappy have shared with me about how they started with nothing, moved across country with no money. My pappy was in the Navy, you know, not having any money. They had to wait to the end of the month to fill up with gas. They had to push the car to the gas station on the naval base, filled up for 19 cents a gallon. You know, my pappy loved my grandma so much he spray painted her name on his car when he was younger. You know, just stuff like that. Those stories mean so much to me, and I cherish them today more than ever. Without personal and family stories, kids miss out on a relational history that fuels a healthy perspective about their identity. Kids also need fictional stories. Now, I know this makes some people nervous. I'm not here to have the Harry Potter debate, the Hunger Games debate, the Pokemon debate. I'm not here to talk about the Tooth Fairy or the Santa Claus debate. But I will say, let's all agree on something. God seems to be okay with fiction. Let me first say that I believe that all the Old Testament stories are true. I believe that the Bible is without error, and I believe that the entire Bible is true. However, there is fiction in there, and it was a primary way that Jesus amplified truth. He taught in parables because sometimes the best way to clarify truth is to tell a story about it. Without fiction, kids miss out on the cultural history that they need to connect to a wider community and develop values. Kids need Bible stories. We all know that the Bible is really a collection of stories that tell one big story over time. Without the Bible, kids and teens grow up and fail to connect the great mysteries of the universe with a creative and loving God. They miss out on kind of the spiritual history that is foundational to their faith. In other words, stories are just another way to connect us to what really matters. You know what I think is one of the biggest proofs that God really exists? Is the fact that we all have an imagination that allows us to connect to stories. I mean, think about that for a second. Without our imagination, we couldn't see past what we already know. we couldn't put ourselves in someone else's shoes and feel how they feel, we wouldn't be able to hope beyond today. We have to use our imaginations when we hear about God creating the universe. We have to use our imagination when we think about God speaking through the burning bush. We have to use our imagination when we think about heaven. One of the greatest things about our imagination is it allows us to put ourselves in the story. Why do you think that Luke Skywalker from Star Wars, Aslan from the Chronicles of Narnia, Rapunzel from Tangled, Nemo from Finding Nemo, why do you think they all appeal to the heart of a kid? Because they remind us of the difference between good and evil. They remind us and they recognize the existence of a supernatural power. They remind us of a need to be rescued. They remind us of a need to be reconciled. Why do we see those same themes come up in blockbuster hit after blockbuster hit? Why do we read about them in New York Times bestseller after New York Times bestseller? I think it has something to do with the fact that every artist, every writer, every director on the face of the planet was created in God's image. And whether they realize it or not, all of their stories, their plots, their twists, their ideas, all of them reflect the bigger story that God has already given us. Stories matter to kids. Take the time to tell them, read them, watch them, live them, collect them. Because stories over time create perspective. Our next word this morning is tribes. When between my junior and senior year at MacU, I did an internship at First Christian Church in Kernersville, where Pete Kunkel, our revival speaker last year, was from. And I made several friends that summer, still keep in contact with several of them. But one of my friends said, before you go back home, I need to take you to Bowman Gray Raceway in Winston-Salem. Now, Bowman Gray is a couple steps above Robertsonville, but it's quite not the big boys. And I said, sure, I'll go to the race. And so we go, and I'm wearing a polo shirt, khaki shorts, and Sperry's, basically the same thing I wear every day of my life. All right, and my friend is dressed casual as well. We get to the race, and we sit down, and we stick out like sore thumbs. Okay, we get there, and the guy beside us has cut-off jean shorts, the cut-off tank top, the bandana, tattoos, no teeth, okay? And he's sitting beside us, and he looks down at us and watches the race, looks down at us, and turns back and watches the race, looks at us a third time, and he finally leans up in his seat, and he says, y'all don't look like racing folk. And I'm thinking to myself, if you are racing folk, then I'm good with not being one. But we've all been in that situation where we feel like we don't belong. And it can feel awkward and uncomfortable and like we're alone. The truth is, we're all trying to fit in somewhere. All right? This is the reason why middle school boys, when they go in the locker room, they spray half a can of body spray all over themselves. All right? This is the reason why high school girls have to have this, that, and the other, the latest this, that, and the other to keep up with their peers. This is why when you go to other parts of the country, grown men that aren't skinny wear skinny jeans, all right? They're trying to belong to something, all right? Basically, people need people. We need our circles, or we need our tribes. We define ourselves by our tribes. We say, I'm a student. We say, I'm a mom. I'm a dad. I'm a Republican. I'm a Democrat. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a photographer. I'm a Martin County native. I'm a State fan. All right. Let me first of all say, good game yesterday, ECU. Good game. All right. They deserve to win. All right. I will say though, all right, we're talking about tribes this morning. All right. You ECU football people in that tribe. Okay. You can't go to Carolina or Duke basketball tribe when basketball season comes around. All right. Over time, that messes up a kid. All right. You're going to confuse them. You got to stay loyal to your tribe. All right. In all seriousness, though, as a leader, parent, and a grandparent, as an adult in this church, we have the primary responsibility to connect kids to two tribes that are really the only ones that matter. All right? The two tribes that matter are the church and the family. Again, these two tribes that God thought up and knew that we needed to be a part of. It all started with the 12 tribes. You remember? He started the 12 tribes. He created a nation from one of them. He set them apart. And through that nation, he sent his son. After the son was gone, all the small tribes started popping up everywhere. Paul's running around to all the different tribes. He's helping all of them understand what they had in common. He helped them figure out their similar struggles. He wrote down customs, beliefs, theology to help define the larger tribe that they already all belonged to. The idea spread and the tribe grew. Tribes are one of God's primary ways that he communicates his love for us. You think about the story of the prodigal son. All right, if you don't remember it, this is how it goes. A son goes to his dad and says, I want my inheritance. He's basically telling his dad, you are dead to me. The dad gives him his inheritance. The son goes off to a foreign land. He spends his money on lavish things, and he soon comes out with empty pockets. He realizes he doesn't have any money, and so he goes down to the local hog farm, and he's eating scraps with the hogs. He realizes one day, he says, I can go home, and I can be a servant under my dad's family, and I'll have it better off than being here with the pigs all day. And so he goes home. Instead of making him a servant, though, his dad runs out to him, he greets him, he puts a ring on his finger, and he throws him a huge party. You know why? I believe that the dad understood that tribes were important. He put a ring on his finger to signify, you're still part of this family. He threw him a big party to signify that, hey, you belong in this community. He sent a clear message. You are known, you are welcome, and you are forgiven. You belong. The only two tribes that are really positioned to give kids this are the church and the family. Thus, kids desperately need people who know them, welcome them, forgive them over time so that they belong. The idea is rooted in grace. We don't belong because we deserve to belong. We belong because God has accepted us and forgiven us. You are known by God in a way that you are not known by anyone else. He has accepted you into his tribe forever. That is true belonging. That's why kids need tribes over time. They need to be known before they can feel welcomed. They need to be known before they can be forgiven. They need to be known before they can feel like they belong. If you want to create a place where kids want to come every week, or more importantly, where they want to run back to when life has them down and has them broken, then we need to give them a tribe over time. Tribes over time create belonging. Our last word this morning is fun. One of the most effective ways to stay connected to your kid is to have fun with them. We were made fun, and maybe like the average person, you get to be an adult and fun just kind of goes by the wayside, but we're still made to do it. And I wouldn't necessarily say this of Macedonia. I believe Macedonia is one of the funnest churches around. But the church as a whole sometimes gets the bad reputation for being a place that says things like, it's not our job to entertain kids. Kids need to learn to be more reverent. Life is not all about fun and games. How can kids learn when they're having so much fun? It's time to admit that the church as a whole has a serious problem. Translation, the church has a problem with being too serious sometimes. The church as a whole needs to have a fun adjustment. If we want kids and teens to show up, if we want to earn the right to speak into their lives, to develop a relationship with them, then we need to start having fun with them. Having fun is not a sin. And while the word fun is not found in the Bible, its tribe is all there. Words like be glad, rejoice, dance, celebrate, a cheerful heart, worship with gladness. Joy is a fruit of the Spirit. We are told to enjoy. We were created to enjoy God's creation. We are told to enjoy ourselves and each other. Christians should be the most joyful, positive, happy, playful, fun people on the planet. If we played, laughed, and smiled more, then maybe at home and at church, then kids might grow up with a healthier perspective of their family and the Christian community as a whole. Did you know that fun over time actually convinces kids that you like them? Think about it for a second. How do you get a kid to warm up to you? You play with them. You have fun with them. Right? Before they can feel loved, they need a little evidence that you actually like them. You have to do that with fun. Fun also fosters resilience. All right? Every one of us knows that life is hard. Everybody's going to experience tragedy, heartbreak, or disappointment at some time or another. But fun can create opportunities and give kids fun memories that can assure them that life goes on and that the joys of loving, living, and laughing together far outweigh the pain that life temporarily throws us sometimes. Fun over time authenticates forgiveness and reconnects what's been disconnected. Think about it. How easy is it to have fun with someone that you're still mad at? Romans says, show mercy cheerfully. There's no other way to prove it. The point is to take time to have fun with your kids at home and here at church. They love us and they just want to play with us. Sooner rather than later, we're going to be the ones crawling after them, begging for their attention. It goes by fast. Please do not miss it. Be careful not to miss it. You don't want to miss out what fun over time can really accomplish, because fun over time creates connection. So what you do over time matters. Time, love, words, stories, tribes, and fun. They never really mean much without time. Love without time is just infatuation. Words without time are just clever things to help you win at Scrabble. Stories over time are just experiences that happen once. Tribes over time are just those clubs you sign up for and never attend. Fun over time was just that game that one time. Don't just get discouraged when you think that you aren't making a difference. Remember to look at the bigger picture and that over time you are helping shape the next generation. Therefore, spend time with them. Prove that you love them. Give them words and say them over and over and over again. Give them a story. Give them a tribe. Have fun with them. Play with them. Again and again, time over time. Because over time, it matters.